This episode is brought to you by New Masters Academy, the world's #1 online art school. Please check the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about how to price your art.
Yes, but before we get into it, make sure to like this video.
Jingle our bells and buttons over there.
Stroke, tickle it.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to censor that.
So the reason why we are talking about this today is because I saw a conversation happening on Twitter about Butch Hartman for some reason. And Vincent, do you know who Butch Hartman is?
No. But first of all, how are we getting so many topics from Twitter? This is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because everyone likes to put their opinions on Twitter and it's just really easy to find fascinating, strange topics to talk about.
Strange opinions, I guess.
Yeah.
So what is this Butch Hartman? What does he do?
He is the creator of Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, I totally know who Butch Hartman is. He created Fairly Odd Parents.
It's okay. I really didn't know much about him either.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, he's the creator of Fairly Odd Parents. Because apparently he has a pretty big YouTube channel, but I only found that out recently. And the reason why people were talking about him is because they were criticizing him and, in a way, mocking him for charging $200 for his commissions and $1,000 for, I think, a 1 hour long Skype consultation. And
is this an art and business consultation or just art?
I think it's art and business.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's specifically if you have show ideas that you want to pitch to studios or whatever, he kind of gives his 2 cents since he's done it before.
1,000?
Yeah.
It's kind of low, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Anyway, but people were freaked out by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So people were criticizing first. The main topic was his commission prices because they were seeing the simplicity in his commissions and the lack of skill, in their opinion, to do his kind of artwork. And they were basically mocking him for being able, I guess, to charge $200.
But I don't understand. That? Aren't people hiring him or commissioning him to draw in that look that he made for the show that he's known for? I don't understand. What are you expecting? That he's going to be Michelangelo?
Yeah, well, the people who are criticizing him are other artists. They're not the people actually paying him.
I see. Everything makes so much sense now.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this was so strange because I was like, you realize the people paying him aren't necessarily paying him for the quality of the artwork. They're paying him because he's Butch Hartman.
Yes. Yes.
And I just was like, that's not even being talked about, really, but people were just, in a way, saying things like, he can only charge that much because he is Butch Hartman. Yes, obviously.
So what are these people who are criticizing online? What do they want? Are they trying to dictate how much his art is worth?
In a way,
it's a little ridiculous.
And they're also the main point, I think, is they're complaining about the fact that the skill doesn't match the value. So they're seeing something, in their opinion, that doesn't require that much skill and wondering why people are willing to pay him that much for it. Or why he has the audacity to charge that much for it, I guess. Mind you, while I was witnessing all of this happen, I also, when people talk shit, they also bring up rumors and accusations and a lot of things that are not, in my opinion, they're rumors.
Right.
It's shit talking. So I don't even want to comment about that because I don't know the guy. I don't have feeling. I don't care. I don't have feelings either way about whatever he is. I just want to talk about like the facts that like, oh, he charged $200 for his commissions and $1,000 for a consultation.
But to me, it's a little ridiculous. It's like people are coming out there to pay him for the service of, how to pitch a good or a cartoon show to a studio. I'm sure somebody like him would know how to do that. And if somebody's paying for, I can't imagine anybody paying for his art or who admires his art going, oh, that's way too high. I feel like people who really love the show would go gaga for even like a production sketch from the show. So I don't understand who's complaining. And when you told me it was artists, I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. There's a little bit of envy going on here.
Yes. Yeah. And in my opinion, I realize that there are a lot of people who really don't understand how pricing works and value and negotiation and just in general how to price your art, how to navigate this world, because clearly it just seemed like such a basic conversation to me that we've had with our teachers before too, about how skill does not necessarily always equal value. Like look at like so many fine art paintings that have sold in the past decade. Not all of them require a whole lot of skill to do, but the perceived value of it is thousands and thousands of dollars. I think these are a bunch of just really insecure young artists who are taking out their frustrations. They don't know too much about how to price art and how to price on value and not just skill alone or time it takes to do something.
I see.
Yeah. And we have experience with this too early on when we started doing conventions. When we first started selling our work in person at trade shows, conventions, craft fairs, that kind of thing, we priced ourselves really, really low.
The year was 2015. I was 22 years old and Janet was 21 years old when we decided to make a little bit of a conventioning business because we were trying to break into the animation industry.
Yeah.
And that takes time, so might as well try to make money and at least get our feet wet with making money with our art.
Yeah.
So we booked a few conventions. We reached out to, I think, CTN.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. That was the first one.
The worst convention to start.
Yeah.
Because it's more like a industry networking event.
Yeah.
And not really a craft fair where people want to buy art.
But then after that, we did a few conventions in Nevada, a few conventions here in around Anaheim. Mm-hmm. I don't know why we priced our stuff really low other than like we just really wanted to have people notice us and buy our art.
Yeah, I mean, we were all over the place when we first started pricing our art. We had absolutely no concept of what things were worth and how to price things. I think my very first prints, which were not good, they were little prints of my characters from my portfolio at the time. I had developed this original story in school, and I went to CTN in order to get hired, not to sell work. But I thought, well, I have a table, I might as well sell something.
Sell what I got, right?
And I remember pricing these small little prints for $25, and that is way too much for a small print. But on the opposite end, after that experience, I went like to the other side because I was like, oh, I guess if I really didn't know how to price prints, so I was like, oh, if I can't sell it at 25, I must be overcharging like crazy, and I was.
Complete opposite direction.
I want to say sometimes we sold prints for like as low as $5 or $10.
Yeah, and we used to sell these. In our free time, we would sketch in these index cards from Staples, and we would sell them for $1 as we're waiting for people. So we didn't start off as professionals, and they don't teach you at school how to run a table.
No.
I mean, so in terms of basic knowledge about pricing, we applied what we learned from what they taught us about freelancing pricing.
Yeah.
Especially with that type of illustration thing where you charge for materials as well as time. So we always took that into consideration, but we also wanted people to come and participate and buy our art.
Yeah. And something that I think a lot of people who live online don't understand is just because you have a large social media following doesn't necessarily mean anybody wants to buy your art in real life. So at the time, I didn't have any social media following at all. And so I didn't come from that place at all when pricing my art. I just didn't know what I was doing. I think everyone in their first few conventions or first foray into selling their art, in a way has to undercharge because no one cares who you are. No one knows who you are. They're just going to buy your art if they can see value in it. And most of the time, if you've never done this before, they don't know who you are. So there's no value in your whatever it is that you're selling to them. Everyone kind of has to start really low. Like I don't know anyone who didn't crash and burn in their first convention, first trade show.
Few. Yeah. Because you don't know what you're doing. I'm sure people who have been to conventions before listening to the podcast know that they can kind of tell who's new and who's not. A lot of the new tables, they don't even bother propping it up. They just put their work like face down. And, that's stuff that we used to do too.
Yeah. Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, everyone starts somewhere. And for sure, it doesn't matter how much of an audience we get these days, especially when we used to convention a lot. I still look at the littler artists tabling and I go, oh, I remember when I didn't have much. I laid it flat. I just had a rinky-dink banner behind me. Yeah.
I think it's commendable on its own that someone took the effort to be there.
Yeah.
Like that takes guts on its own.
Right.
And to make that first step, I think, is the first step. It doesn't mean that you're going to make loads of money or you'll be perfectly prepared, but you have to take that first step.
Yeah. I don't know. How many conventions did it take for us to finally break even? I think it took 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4.
Yeah. So that's a lot, Yeah. I feel like a lot of people would give up after 3 or 4 conventions where they eat shit.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you gotta have to keep going.
Yeah, you have to really try to crack that puzzle.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason why I say that is we've seen plenty of people who have large social media followings that don't amount to much when they finally show up in real life and try to sell their art.
Yeah, and the only reason why we have people who show up is because we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years and we've built the person-to-person clientele.
Yeah.
There are people who still walk by and go, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, there are people who spend loads of money on our commissions who don't follow us on social media. They don't have social media, but they know us because they've developed this relationship with us at conventions.
And they keep a mental checkbox of whichever artist they want to meet or touch base with in every convention. And it's nice to be on that list.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you can't eventually be on somebody else's list. We were on tons of people's lists when we were affordable.
Yeah.
And then, naturally, as you get a little bit more higher in price, people just can't afford you as much as they used to. But we're also really happy that, especially to think that these people who invested in us so early on really had the original old stuff, the genuine old stuff we used to make.
Yeah, we used to say, wouldn't it be awesome that one day we got to a place where we can charge a lot for our art and those early drawings will be at a different worth value.
Yeah.
They probably paid nothing for it, but now it's probably worth more. And that's what you get for being an early supporter.
Yeah. And it might not be as great in terms of skill, where we're at now, compared to where we're at now, but you get where we were at that place in time.
Yeah.
And isn't that neat?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool if you ask me.
Yeah. It takes time. It takes time. It took us a long time to slowly raise our prices. And part of it was demand. Part of it, our skills were improving because when you're doing commissions, at all these conventions, you're sitting there and you're forcing yourself to draw for more than 8 hours a day on the weekend. And we're also drawing full time
at work. Yeah, there were some conventions where I don't remember ever getting a break.
Yeah.
I think Level Up Expo in Nevada was one of those. Our first one was one of those conventions when we were drowning in commissions, and I think that was and Level Up Expo must have been like our 5th or 6th convention, something like that. And then that's when we realized, like, oh, if we're drowning in commissions, I think that's a sign we need to raise our prices.
Yeah, we can. I think at the time we were selling like 9 by 12 commissions, so like a pretty medium-sized piece of art for like $25.
Yeah, it's like nothing. So we would just turn these things out really fast, and we at this time we made commission slips, and we wrote down how many, what kind of characters they needed to be, what size each commission was, and by the second to the last day of that convention, there was a stack, and I remember just freaking out. And I remember at the very last minute, I think at the very last hour, we cleared all those commissions.
Yeah.
But we had to hustle. And I barely remember doing anything other than eating. And there was this person who made, you'll remember this, there's a person who made a video game across from us. And the video game track would play over and over and over again.
Oh, that's the worst at conventions, when somebody's booth has music, but like the same music playing over. When you're like tabling next to them, you're there for like at least 10 hours every day listening to the same thing. That's
rough.
Yeah. But I remember too, our professional friends would say, you guys need to be charging more.
They would be shocked and like think we're crazy and all this stuff, and we would hear it all the time, but we just priced our stuff higher and higher very, very slowly.
Yeah, see, what they don't understand is pricing your art to the public and real life people is very different than getting hired in a studio or in some kind of full-time status where you get paid hourly because shows have $1 million budgets. But when you're pricing your work, like, they didn't have any experience doing conventions or charging for commissions at all. So they don't understand like demand. They don't understand how hard it is to get a commission to begin with. So they were saying that, like, yes, we knew in our heads we are worth more, but at the time we're not capable of charging more. Yeah. And until you get your feet wet and start actually offering commissions, start actually selling your art, you don't understand that. Which is why we see a lot of industry people who think, sadly, that they're hot shit, and they show up to conventions and expecting the world to shower love and praise and throw money at them. It just doesn't happen, because that's not how that works. This is something I remember telling my coworkers too, who were like really curious about our side hustle. They're always asking me like, how am I so industrious and how do I know all this stuff?
And you would be gone. And they couldn't help but wonder, I wonder how much Janet made over the weekend. And then sure enough, as soon as you get back from that crazy ass weekend, they're like, so how'd it go?
Yeah, and I share like tips and everything that I learned with them. And they were the first ones that were like, you should consult. You should teach people how to do this.
Yeah, I remember when you came up to me, I think we were on our way somewhere, and you were like, you know what they said? They said I should give people financial advice. And then I was like, that's funny. You give people financial advice? That's silly. But then I thought about it more and was like, there's a lot of information that you've gathered, that you've sponged up that is valuable to people.
Yeah, that people don't know. So if you are looking for a little bit of motivation, I highly recommend the 4-Hour Work Week. This is the book that helped me be able to quit my job. And if you want to listen to this book, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you will get a free Audible trial where you get 1 free audiobook or 2 free Audible original audiobooks. So 3 audiobooks in total at audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. When I say like you don't need a big social media following to make money, there are so many people that we've made friends with who we kind of know that we see regularly at conventions. They make bank.
Yeah.
They make bank at these conventions. There's this one person who was able to buy a Tesla off of convention money. So, and they don't have huge social media followings. And that's where people who don't sell their art get it wrong. Like people think that you need big social media followings in order to make money, and that's so far from the truth. It has nothing to do with vanity metrics and all that stuff. It's just you need to go out there and do it and figure it out and test and learn, because that's what we did. We learned, we improved,
build relationships.
Yeah, and then we were able to charge more and more and more.
So one thing that we did that was really helpful in figuring out how to price things or just to understand how other people do what they do is to go as an attendee.
Yeah.
And at this point, I would highly recommend to do that. And if one day we're able to do conventions again, I'd highly recommend to go as an attendee first. If you're thinking about, I think the first step, if you're serious about selling at a convention, is to go as an attendee.
You know, for me, one of the earlier struggles that I had regarding pricing art is as an Asian. My parents didn't buy art.
I remember there at Sabacon in Las Vegas, I think it was like our second one. I think there was like this old Filipino grandpa
Oh, yeah.
who was like looking over at our work and then just going like, oh my God, my nephew can do better than this. Oh my God.
Probably.
Just muttering to himself. And it's just like, that's such a, of course, we didn't get mad. Like, of course you'd think that because we're thinking that.
Yeah.
Well, like
Why?
every time we go to these conventions, especially back then, we would go like, who's going to buy our pieces of paper with scribbles on them?
Yeah, with dirt and water smudges on it. Because that's what it is. Well, that's what our teachers would say all the time.
Yeah.
We
push dirt with sticks.
Yeah, that's what we do.
And the digital artists push pixel dirt with...
They touch a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember going, I have no idea how to price this print or whatever because I never bought art myself.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know why someone would buy art. I was so like removed from that experience that I couldn't really comprehend it at all. So what helped was being an attendee.
Right.
It helped to like actually be in the shopper's perspective, to be looking for something to buy.
Yeah.
It's just
for
simply
yourself.
like, yeah,
To put yourself in the, on the opposite side.
Yeah.
And then you'll, just by knowing what you liked about the experience of you buying somebody else's comic or t-shirt or whatever it is, you'll understand like, oh, this is how I like it. Because if it attracts me, then I can feel like I learned something out of this whole experience.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I bought that because it matches my couch.
Yeah.
Or I bought that because it's sparkly. Like you come at it from a different perspective when you're not the artist behind it. Because sometimes when you're making art, you get lost in the art of it and you forget that people buy things not just because of the great idea or whatever.
It kind of has to grab you at first. At least from far away, you kind of have to be like, oh, it kind of looks cool. And the really good people know that. And then the more you look at it, the more you go like, no, that looks really, really cool. Look at all the detail here.
We have a friend, Chris Kakayo. He is a veteran convention artist. He makes most of his living at going to conventions. Check him out on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, everywhere. And he said very early on, I think before he ever did one convention, he went to a convention and went to every single booth, wrote down notes, took lots and lots of notes. He wrote down the prices of everything in someone's booth, wrote down what they were selling, and just really did his research. And that is a really good way of approaching how, like, just competitor research. Simple.
Yeah, we met somebody at Arizona the first time we did Phoenix, who just to gather data, he stood in front of the I think front door and just counted how many people were coming out with shopping items.
Yeah, with shopping bags.
With shopping bags, right?
And he sadly realized that, in this convention there are a lot of people, but not many of them buy.
Or at least that day. I think it got a little bit better as the days went on.
Yeah. And
then that's just something you have to deal with too. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
So they're like, every convention is different. There's never a pattern that we can depend on of like, people always buy on Sunday.
Yeah.
And sometimes people buy a lot on Saturday and just, you never see them ever again on Sunday.
Yeah. You can't really predict people's shopping habits that well. Unless you're Target. This is actually very similar to how we approached, I guess, negotiating how much we are paid when working full time as well. I think people who are green behave differently when they're going into an interview and to negotiate their wage versus someone who has more experience. And it's actually something that I've witnessed our professors and teachers in school trying to train their students literally how they behave, how they come across, so that they seem less green and they have a higher chance of, one, getting hired, and two, being taken seriously when they're hired and being paid the proper amount. For example, when I was looking for work at the time, I still am a very shy, introverted person. I genuinely believe one of the reasons why it took me a little bit longer to get hired was because of how shy I was. Because when you come across shy, it also reads as incompetent. It also reads as just like you don't really know what you're doing. And it doesn't instill that much confidence in the person trying to hire you. They want to hire someone who they know will do a good job for them, who they know they will be able to communicate with them. In school, especially, people who tend to be shy, a lot of our teachers will try to like crack the whip on them and try to like get them to speak up, get them to change a little bit, get them to behave a little bit, for lack of a word, more professionally, more in a way where people will take you seriously. And it sucks because we do live in an extroverted world where in a lot of cases, I think it really benefits you to pretend to be an extrovert, especially in interviews and stuff like that, in order to be taken seriously. That's not to say that like if you're an introvert, you won't be hired or you won't get paid as much. There's just a correlation between like if you're really shy and you look like you can be walked all over, they might walk all over you. Versus when I was freelancing a lot more, I learned how to negotiate rates a lot better. I figured out the going rate for things and I had a lot more confidence in my skills. So for example, when I got my DreamWorks job, I behaved differently than the first time I was ever interviewed for DreamWorks. I've never talked about that before, actually. I had almost gotten hired at DreamWorks before, but that was when I was still in school and I was really shy still, and I didn't know how to, I guess, present myself as a confident professional, if that makes any sense. And that opportunity eventually fell through. They eventually hired someone else. But this time around, I had a lot more work experience. I had freelanced a lot more. And at the time, I was considering whether or not I should do the independent artist thing full time or do like get my feet wet with animation. So I went into that interview very confident, and it was, in my opinion, a deciding factor in why I got hired, because like versus before especially. And when you do come across as confident, people treat you like a like someone that they can't just push over. They're not just gonna like take advantage of you. They're not gonna like lowball you. They're gonna treat you like someone who knows exactly how much they're worth. And you need to act like that. Even if you don't, you gotta fake it till you make it. What about you? What were you like when you were green?
When I was green, I got hired at my first creative job, my first job in my entire life in theme park design. And I remember, oh my God, being an intern for $15 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, $15 an hour minus income tax. Like, yeah, it's like a lot less.
But you were pretty much worked like a normal employee.
Yeah. And then they basically made me work like a normal employee. And then I got hired legit for about $25. I remember when they told me $25, I was over the moon. I was like, I'm gonna be so rich. I'm gonna make so much money. But then it was like a lot of work, and it was a lot of photo bashing and a lot of stuff that when you go to art school, you're doing illustrations and all this stuff. At least the track that I was on, and that wasn't, photo bashing. That might be great for other people, not my favorite thing to do. So I wanted to leave. But I remember just thinking like being so content with just being able to make money drawing. But then I started to work in animation, and it really was like, oh, I could actually make a lot more money. The amount of work in terms of like workload and stress in animation was a lot less, at least in my opinion, compared to the job I used to be at. And I was like, oh, I am enjoying my work. I am enjoying the people I'm working with, and I'm making significantly more money. And then when you're in when I was in that type of situation, I was like, oh, okay, so this is the ideal situation then. I don't know, this is like how much I think I'm worth. This is how much I think this job is worth because I'm enjoying it so much. And from there on, I always tried to like, I don't know, like just like how we raise prices with conventions very slowly, just figure out how to, raise my rate a little bit as I gain more experience. I'm in my 5th year soon. Fourth year.
Yeah.
Which is like, man, I'm at around the time when you quit, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's still fun, but then I think about those times at the theme park design shop and comparing how much I make now to back then, and the amount of work I had to do back then.
Oh, they're totally abusing you.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was so much fucking work. Like, my God.
Oh, man. Theme parks, you guys, are, in my opinion, one of the notoriously underpaid for what they require of you.
She said that, not me. But yeah, so like in my perspective, I thought very lowly of myself. And then as I gained more experience and more confidence, I'm like, oh, okay, so I feel like this is what I'm worth. And I feel like if I get better at this, and if I improve these little things that I could improve on, I can get higher in worth. Something like that. Like just in terms of like how much I perceive myself to be getting paid.
So negotiating is like playing poker. And I think everyone should learn how to play poker.
Yes, everyone should learn how to play poker. I think there's 2 games everyone should learn how to play. It's chess, which I'm horrible at, and it's poker.
And you actually got me into poker.
Yeah.
I was like kicking and screaming. Like, I don't want to learn.
And I just kept
busy.
thinking like, it's such a great confidence builder.
You learn so many negotiation tactics and risk assessment when you play poker. If you have never played poker before, or you don't know how to play, you are given a set of cards, and then your opponents are given a set of cards, and they flip over some cards on a table, and you try to match up your cards so that you have the best hand.
Best hand is based on the hierarchy of hands.
Yeah.
So everyone has a chance of getting a higher hand than the other person, but nobody knows until the very, very end.
Yeah. And you go through several rounds, and you can, there are, I think, 3 moves. You can raise, call, or fold. Fold is you give up, you have a absolutely no chance of winning, you give up.
Calling is a very passive move. It means you're just going along with somebody raising or whatever it is.
Yeah, it means like you're matching someone else. You don't show that you have a lot of confidence, and you don't show that you have no confidence either. It's very passive. It's like, I'll go along with it. And then raising is usually it comes across as really confident. It signals to other people that you have something, according to what's laid out. So you can bluff, which is pretending like you have something when you don't, or you might actually have something and you'll raise.
Like, see the parallels between negotiation and poker.
Yeah. And we play online poker a lot. And what I've noticed as someone who, like, not with real money, playing with like fake money, most people call. Most people are bluffing. And if you play very aggressively, you're most likely going to win. Unless you're playing with a very, very experienced poker player, then you're most likely going to lose. But that works the same exact way in real life. So most of the time when you go into an interview, when you go into any kind of negotiation, the other person is usually bluffing. They're either trying to screw you, or they know just as much or a little or less than you do. And if you fold or call or show any kind of weakness right from the beginning, you've screwed yourself. Because when someone can smell in a poker game that you are passive or you don't have anything.
Yeah, they abuse the shit out of that.
Yeah, they're going to take your money. Yeah. So most of the time, it doesn't hurt to ask for a little bit more.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to go in with a little bit of extra confidence, whatever you want to call it. Ego, it doesn't matter. Even if it is ego, most of the time, people are going to bend over for you because you come across really confident. You come across like you have something. Have something that they want.
Yeah.
So that's my poker analogy. If that makes any sense.
And the reason why I wanted you to play poker was like, I really, like, you were talking about negotiation and you were talking about finance stuff especially. And I was like, a lot of this is, to me, reminds me of poker. And I really wanted you to understand sort of like the dynamic of what it means to, you know, if your hand is the talent that you have, well, maybe you got to like fake it a little bit and act like, you know, you're the biggest professional in town. Because it's like you owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
If you got chosen to be in an interview for any of these big studios, you owe it to yourself to give yourself the best chance. You know,
to at the very least be taken seriously.
Right, and you don't want to just like, you know, you spend all this effort doing a test and or writing whatever kind of cover letter or just putting your best foot forward. You don't want to just like. Not give yourself the last like sell at the end. A lot of the times I feel like, especially you know, negotiating with these bigger studios, when I first started barely out of art school, I remember we got chosen to be at like Nick a few times for what do you call that? The talent development thing.
Yeah.
We were like runner-ups, and we just got a taste of what that's like. It's really like intimidating. You're going in this big studio, and there's the cartoons you want to make and all this stuff. It's so easy for them to go, we're going to pay you this low, and you go, okay, sure.
Whatever you say. I lick the boot.
Yes. I just think like, stand your ground, take a deep breath, think about what you've done and how much work it took to get here, and really be honest with yourself and really like go into that interview asking for what you believe you deserve.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, let's say you come across as an asshole.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? That if you're in the interview for a reason.
Right.
For one. They already acknowledged your skill. And if you come across an asshole, in a way, that kind of instills more confidence in them for you. Because they're like, oh, they're an asshole for a reason. Usually assholes are assholes for a reason. Very rarely do you meet someone who's completely rude egotistic.
And doesn't know how to do just the worst.
That's like the worst.
That person will never get hired.
It doesn't make any sense.
So if this were poker, if you're negotiating with like HR or a recruiter, or what, I don't know, whoever it is you talk, depending on which studio.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, I feel like the people on the studio side are always going to expect very, very, very little from you because every artist acts the same. They don't kind of fight for themselves. They go, we're going to pay you this little. And they go, okay, as long as I get to work for this brand name studio and tell all my friends and family, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, it's like, no, this matters a lot. You invested so much. You went to really expensive art school. You sacrificed so much. You should ask for what you think is right for you.
Yeah. This is why I think everyone should learn how to run a business, because I think freelancers and business owners understand this concept more than people who are just looking to get hired. Because people who are just looking to get hired, the bar is pretty low. They don't know how to fight for what they're worth and how to, I guess, own up to it, like follow up on it. For example, I have a friend. He was going to Netflix for a job opportunity, and he was coming off of a show, going to this other show, and
for Netflix.
Yeah, for Netflix.
Oh, right.
So he gets called by the HR person, and they're like, "Congratulations, we want to hire you. This is the rate." Expecting him to just be like, "Okay, sounds great. When do I start?" And he was like, "That rate is below guild minimums. Like, this is below the rate that I'm supposed to be paid." The Netflix person was like, "Oh, so you do your homework."
See, that's how little they think of you.
Yeah.
They're expecting you to not. They're expecting you to be incompetent.
Yeah.
You know?
They're expecting you to be like a scared, desperate artist.
Yeah, who has like a shit ton of loans to pay and will do anything just to be able to work.
Yeah. And the saddest
and
part...
will say anything just to be able to stay.
The saddest part is a lot of artists will do that.
Yeah.
Basically devaluing everyone else. Because if they get some poor schmuck to agree to it, then they know that they can get another poor schmuck to agree to it. So if someone in the future says the same thing, like, "Oh, you should be paying me more," they can be like, "Okay, bye-bye. I'm gonna hire this other next, basically."
Yeah.
So that's why I would argue that artists need to have a little bit more confidence, a little bit more gusto, and a little bit just fight for what you think you deserve.
Experience some risk assessment.
Yeah. But obviously there's a con to it. And in my opinion, it's not that big of a con because it happens so rarely. But you need to be prepared to walk away.
Yeah, you need to be prepared to not get the thing.
Yeah.
If you're prepared to...
Love.
Yeah, if you're prepared to go in guns blazing.
Because 2 of our friends were being considered for the same job. One got the job, and then the recruiter HR person was like, "You got the job, this is the rate." And they were like, "Can I have a little bit more? Can you raise the rate a little bit?" They never got back to them. And they went with the other person who was just like, "Okay."
That's dirty because when you set up the sort of idea that you're almost about to get in and then you ask for a little bit more just to ask, all they have to do is say no.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. But that's dirty.
Yeah.
It's really, really dirty.
So
that's what you're dealing with, young artists in art school.
Yeah.
Be prepared, guys. Be prepared.
Not to scare you, but
no, well,
that's just a reality. Both situations can happen.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the first situation happens when you go like, "I want a little bit more." They'll most likely give you a little bit more. If you fight for the bare minimum.
Yeah, and be smart and have plan Bs. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna go hard on your plan A and you're willing to walk away, that means you have something to walk away to.
Yeah.
Be sure to have that.
But the opposite also happens, especially in animation, in any job field, really. They will try to screw you however they can. And if they can get away with it, they will.
And no one's gonna look out for you except for yourself.
But that leads us into how we price things now. Specifically, I guess, for me, how I price commissions and products in the online store.
Yeah, what do you think has changed between where we were at way back when we first started and now?
I price things a lot more based on value and less to do with the actual cost of an item or how long it took to make or whatever.
But then that people are probably thinking value. What do you mean? You're like setting your own prices?
Kind of, in a way. Like I do look at other people and how they price their stuff, because I don't want to be so outrageously out of the ballpark. Like I don't want to sell a mug for like $100 when mugs do not sell for $100. But I do price it on who we are and the value that we bring and the perceived value. So for example, when you price yourself based on value versus based on cost and time, you are able to charge a lot more. So think of any luxury or high-end streetwear brand. For example, let's just take Supreme, for example. Everyone knows Supreme. I don't even know how much their shirts are these days, like $300 for a t-shirt. I can tell, like everyone knows that t-shirt did not cost $300 and anywhere close to that to make. Or any luxury handbag or jewelry or car or anything really. But why do people pay that much money for those things? Because of the perceived value of it. And in a way, art is kind of a luxury good. Like no one really needs it. It's not like food. It's not like, there's an aspect to food that's the same. Like you can go to like a 3-star Michelin restaurant and be charged a lot too. But so art should, in my opinion, be priced based on value. And how do you do that? Well, it's all branding. It's all marketing. There are some companies that don't even need a huge social media following. They just come straight out of the gate with a luxury marketing tactic where they convince people that they are worth like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for like a t-shirt, and they're able to sell without a huge social media following, without whatever. So that's how I think about it. It's because we are more well-known these days, because barely you guys, because we are providing some kind of value to people with like YouTube and with everything that...
Yeah, the sheer fact that when we do commissions these days, if you commission us, you get TikTok videos and possibly a YouTube video. That's really cool.
Possibly a shout out.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. You're getting more than just the piece of art. I take in consideration both. It's like, how much can I reasonably charge for something like a t-shirt, and how much perceptively are we worth?
Right.
I don't think we're Supreme, so I'm not going to charge $300 for a t-shirt. And right now, our commission prices are fairly, I think, standard for your average professional artist.
Yeah. And it's amazing because I don't think we've had the professional... This is, I think, entry-level professional prices too. But like we didn't get here until recently. Until actually you quit Disney, I guess.
Yeah,
we were like... our prices were more competitive compared to the professionals even at that time. And then you decided to raise them.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to raise them again. But eventually, like, there are artists out there for commissions for a doodle, a signature, a painting, whatever, who charge thousands and thousands of dollars. And like maybe we'll get there one day, but until then, we will just slowly be increasing prices until we get there. And that's how it's done. I can get into it a little bit more, I guess, specifically, but I think I would bore everyone. Let us know what you want us to talk about if you want us to talk about anything specific. Make sure to like the podcast. Please do it. Smash our buttons and our bells. And that's it for this episode of the Honey and Absinthe podcast. Go to honeyandabsinthe.com to buy our merch. I am wearing the fight shirt today. Oh, wow. And follow us at Honey and Absinthe everywhere, Instagram, and podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere where you find podcasts. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye.